So, finally, King of the Hill has returned. Episode 1. After major setbacks, major losses, they still made it happen. I absolutely enjoyed this episode. The center focus was change. Hank and Peggy come back to America after being in Saudi Arabia, after Hank was conducting some propane business there. Now, everything around him has changed, and it could be for the good, sometimes for the worst. The couple second guessed their life here in America. Back in Saudi Arabia, it felt like it was so much better. But it's so wholesome the way that a box of Girl Scout cookies could change their minds. Then you got the other thing. You have Bobby, who instead of going to college like his peers, who owns a restaurant and now has to work hard and doesn't have the time to party like the rest. Time to get into character updates. So, Boone Howard, he does have a son, except it's actually his girlfriend's son. His name is Luke Jr., and he has anxiety, much different than Bobby and Joseph. Nancy and John Redcorn are working together now to sell real estate, which is quite interesting. Sadly, Bill has let himself go. He relies on services such as Amazon, Uber Eats, as well as Netflix and various other streaming services. Here's a new character. His name is Brian, and he was watching over the Hills family's home while they were gone. He's interesting, and he fits in quite well. Dale was the mayor of Arlen for literally minutes. It's a little hard getting used to the new voice acting, but I do see that they're trying to do like a buddy comedy with this new character, Brian, that kind of goes along with Dale. Shane is not shown in this episode, but Bobby gets invited by some other students to this party. From what we hear, sort of a campus frat boy, but at the same time, his smart self. Something heavily unexpected, especially for me, is that after Bobby got done smashing some college girl, he sees Connie on campus who got done visiting someone. She doesn't go to the school, but if I had to guess, I believe that it may be Shane that she's either dating or kind of flinging with. After some time, she's went off of social media and lost contact with Bobby. Another character that we hear about but don't get to see is Joseph. Say hi to Joseph for me. And Bobby goes in about how he's his roommate. So that's really awesome to hear. The way that this episode ends is absolutely beautiful. Hank grilling, you got the boys over, and of course, you got Bobby back. It's just peak perfection. And I just love this episode so much as a King of the Hill fan. Continuing on with episode 2, Hank is now retired and has tons of free time. While running errands at Megalomart, he finds a brewing kit. This is where he tries to brew beer. In the midst of that, you have Bobby, who's constantly coming to the house to come and use Peggy to do the laundry. Suddenly, she pairs both Bobby and Hank to brew beer together. And whenever they get to it, it turns out they can't come together to make anything of it. Bobby thinks it's boring, and Hank thinks that Bobby's ideas are too much from beer. This turns into the father and son bumping heads and entering a contest where they'll see who has the better beer. Finally, in this episode, we get to see Joseph. His voice is quite a bit hard to get used to, but once you do, you'll kind of get what they're going for. He's very similar to Dale now than ever before. He's also a smoker. Also, Chain appears, and he definitely isn't exactly Bobby's friend. His father has something to do with this restaurant that he's running. That's kind of who's helped him get all the equipment and try to enter into this contest with the promise that if his beer wins, you will get to have this beer in your restaurant. Of course, a very much a surprise character is seeing Men, her normal self, still hitting on Peggy. I love it. Finally, let's talk about the ending. So, father-son going up against each other when it comes to this beer brewing contest. Ends up, both of them drop out. It all starts with Hank, and Bobby follows up with that. The thing is, Bobby would have benefited big time, but he put everything aside to do this for his father. I thought that was really wholesome. In the end, we get to see both Hank, Bobby, as well as Peggy drinking each of their beers. This is whenever the two drink each other's beers that we get to know that if they mix them together, it would have been the perfect one to win. Episode 3. The Heel and Gribble family are going to go check out Bobby's restaurant. Hank is so excited to go see his use of propane. But the plot twist is Bobby indeed uses charcoal instead of propane. Here's Bobby's part of the plot. He's down to one box of charcoal, and the only provider that he has is already out of business. So now he has to try to work something out with this other guy, but he won't sell it to him due to him not being Japanese. With no choice, Bobby has to take along Chain to go meet this seller. Also, we get to know that Chain's father is partial owner of Bobby's restaurant. Once they get to this charcoal cellar, they finally get to see he is not Japanese either, but black, raised by Japanese, and now he's put Bobby on some sort of hit list for racially motivated hate. Meanwhile, you have the Hills and Gribble family at the historical museum. Dale is ruining everything by telling his conspiracies, and everyone finds it more exciting than true facts, and that's really got a bummer on Hank. Something interesting we get to learn is that Joseph works for the state. Also, the appearance of Ted Masana-san is in this episode. He tries to recommend Bobby to use propane instead of charcoal, but Bobby wants to still prove his way. In the ending of this episode, we get to see Bobby go all out and trust his gut. He's going to take it all down to this one box of charcoal. He uses it and he makes a magnificent dinner that changed the mind of activists as well as his own father, who sees everyone react that this food is so good. Episode 4. Hank has ran out of chores to do around the house. This is where Boom Howard shows him this app where you can do jobs for money. Now for Bobby's plot. He's trying to text Connie back after meeting her in the first episode. The thing is, he has no idea what to say, but unexpectedly, she comes to the restaurant. That's where he finds out the girl he's always loved is dating Shane. Boone Howard has this perfect streak of 5 bananas. Hank does all the work. The thing that Boone Howard does is special is he's able to talk to these people without really doing much, and that convinces them to give him this really good rating. Things suddenly go south when Hank drops a bucket on top of Boone Howard's head and he has a concussion. Hank has to go on all alone. Sadly, one of Hank's biggest weaknesses is he's not in tune with his feelings, and these people really want someone they can talk to and get something from as well. It's not just about the work. It makes him end up wrecking Boom Howard's ratings. After a text sent by Connie, Bobby is invited to go to karaoke with her. He suspects this is a date, which the two do sing this nostalgic song, bringing it back to the dance. After this very nostalgic-like song, Bobby is about to go in for a kiss. Suddenly, he gets interrupted by a girl that turns out to be Connie's roommate, who she was trying to set him up with, named Ola. Even though Bobby was vibing with this girl, he was so in love with Connie that he ended up just leaving. Hank decides that he's going to go and get Boone Howard's rating fixed. That's where Hank offers to do free jobs for the family that he got the rating from, and this time, to make conversation, he uses Peggy's experiences. It turns out to be a twist where those people are YouTubers, and they put Peggy full on blast with her problems, and she is so disappointed in Hank for not using his own struggles. In the end, Hank ends up opening up to Peggy that he does all this work because he's scared of being useless. Connie finds Bobby at home. This is where she tries to tell him, I want to be friends with you, ending off with this dynamic fun duo interacting with each other. Episode 5. Boone Howard is roughing for his son, but everyone in the crowd is booing him out. This is where Hank decides to take over since he has this new love for soccer since being in Saudi Arabia. Bobby, Joseph, and Connie are watching TV together when they see a commercial from this car lot named Bronco. This is where Bobby decides to go and buy a car, but Connie thinks he's too nice, so she recommends him to call his mom to get her to help him. Instead, Bobby thinks that technology has changed so much that he should be able to do it on his own. Ever since Hank took on roughing, he's afraid the guys will find out. But what Hank doesn't know is that Dale is watching him, and this is where he was listening in on some conversations. He thinks that he's going to be killing the mayor's son because that he might be a Saudi Arabian spy. Bobby comes to this car lot quite prepared, and he is about to get the car that he wants. That's before the owner comes out, and he is convinced into taking home a horse. Hank was about to rough this huge high school game before he got kidnapped by Dale. He was going to use this truth serum on him, and before that, this is where we get to see Hank come up with this elaborate story where he is working for the US government overseas in Saudi Arabia, and that whole time, that propane operation was something he did as a spy. Which is so funny since Dale is anti government, he lets Hank go. Bobby has finally figured out Bronco Berry gypped him. This horse has no place to go. This is the reason that he was trying to get rid of it. After getting kidnapped by Dale, Hank heads straight back to the high school to go and rough the game. But Boone Howard has took over once again. Rules are chaotic, but everyone is happy. I really like the ending of the Bobby section. So, Bobby has this horse with nowhere to go. They live in an apartment, so obviously you can't park it in a parking lot. This is where John Redcorn comes to go look at it, and he tells him, yeah, it's a scam. They played into you. And this is where John Redcorn reminisces about him and Joseph, and he takes his horse in with the thought maybe Joseph will come and see it, and they'll be able to hang out as the father and son once again to catch up for lost time. Episode 6. This one is quite crazy. Ever since Peggy's retired, she feels like her life is unfulfilled. While Bobby's recording to get on this show called King of the Grill, he finds out that he has rats, which he hires Mr. Gribble. While Hank was away, Bill apparently has made friends. The whole thing is Hank thinks this is some sort of illusion yet again. He follows him, and we get to see that he's actually made real, genuine friends. Which the sad reality is Bill has flipped the roles that Hank is him, and that he is also with his wife. While Joseph's at work, he sees that Chang across the street is kissing another girl that isn't Connie. So he records a video and sends it to Bobby. That's where Bobby tells Connie to come to the restaurant to reveal this news. And we find out something pretty shocking, that she's in an open relationship with Chang. Bobby finally tries to make a move, and Connie downplays it that he isn't the right guy, he'll just get hurt. With Bill playing this charade, Hank finally tells Peggy, and Peggy kind of likes this, and she goes to talk to Bill personally, and she tries to convince him to tell these even like crazier, more elaborate stories. Bill doesn't want to do it because he'd be lying even though he's lying, and Bill kind of gets really weird. That's whenever she's like, yeah, just stop it. After dealing with a broken heart, rat problems, Bobby hears a noise coming from out back. He goes to check it to see a woman that is stealing grease, and this is a new character named Willow. The two end up drinking through the night. Finally, Bill has ended the lies about Peggy. The thing is, he told his friends that she died. Hank then tells Peggy, which she goes and storms over to Bill's house. But this really nice speech that he's giving just makes her feel better about herself, and she just lets it be. which is a really great ending for her as well as Bill. Back at the apartment, we get to see Bobby got lucky and Willow slept over at the house. While this girl's over, Connie pays a visit, which quickly makes it kind of awkward, but in the end, it was quite pleasantly surprising. The reason that Connie visited in the first place was that she sent cookies to Bobby, which had a very nice, touching note, which is just really great. So the whole thing is Bobby kind of played himself. He would have had the girl he's always wanted. And a great part of this is even through this like a love struggle with Bobby, Connie, and figuring out Bobby's found something else, that they're able to still be friends, and we get to see the four of them all hang out. I think it's funny because this is the true episode ending. So Bobby had that big rat problem in the restaurant, and Dale's unorthodox ways actually work, showing once again that he is a good exterminator. Episode 7. One of Bobby's great customers ends up dying shortly after visiting his restaurant. This is where it kind of reminds him of his dad after his son gives a speech at his funeral. With the absence of one of Peggy's groups, she wants to bring everyone in the community closer together. After visiting an estate sale, this is where she finds a ton of books, and she decides on making a library at home. That way, everyone in the community are able to share something. For some reason, I find this kind of crazy, but in the span of one episode, Willow is already coming over to the Hills family for dinner. She's in fact Bobby's girlfriend and is a vegan. Thanks to Willow, Bobby's able to invite Hank to this Dallas Cowboys fantasy training camp. However, his girlfriend will also be coming along on this trip. While Hank is gone, Peggy's been pretty successful with her book nook. With the twist of the turn, however, Peggy finds a rash, and Dale goes to inspect this book nook to figure out that it's in fact a bedbug she's given everyone that has been using this book nook. Bobby and Hank are making up for lost time at this camp, except Bobby's girlfriend is kind of ruining things. Suddenly, though, that all changes whenever she impresses Hank by obliterating the drill course. Like old times, Bobby gets overshadowed. With a new big bug problem, Dale goes to each house and kind of tells these lies that can't connect the dots to Peggy and her books. After Bobby's girlfriend being Hank's new favorite, he subs out early, and you get to see him texting Connie, which shows he still has feelings with her. Honestly, I really like the way that Willow handled this. She tells Bobby to go talk to his dad, which he does, and the two spend time, and yet again, they're catching up. After the two get done with their ice baths, they go on the field, and they see the shadow of Jerry Jones, which gives Hank the idea to go and meet him. They sneak around, and they're outside of his office going in. And beyond that closed door was horrors. They see Willow propped above the picture of Jerry Jones, which she um drops the number 2 on it. If you didn't know, I forgot to mention this. Her father actually worked with the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones fired him. After Dale got done spraying everyone's home, Peggy caused the problems to get out of hand. Now they're meeting in person, talking crap to each other, and fighting. After blaming each other, they try to pinpoint it to Dale because of his crazy stuff that he's tried. And this is where he cowards yet again and blames it all on Peggy, and she has to explain herself. Soon after Bobby's girlfriend defecated on that photo, the father and son duo have that talk that they needed to have. And it had to be real. Bobby is in fact not in love with Willow, but still with Connie, which Hank tells him, hey, you might as well break up with her. Break up with Willow. Now, simultaneously, so far, this is one of my favorite episodes. Peggy explains how she's bettered everyone's life with these books, which it has. And that's where we resolve it with one way only. How do you kill bedbugs? With heat. So they end up burning the books all together as a whole, which is just so great. This one is also in memory of Johnny Hardwick. Episode 8, we get a surprise Con is once again returned. Once again, during bowling, we get to see the couples reattain their competitive natures. And we get to hear there is an upcoming wedding anniversary for both Min and Con. However, things get flipped upside down whenever Hank hears a noise and he goes over to Con's garage. This is where he finds out that Con and Min are divorced and Con's been living in the garage. The thing is, Hank promised not to tell anyone the secret. The choice of catering is actually Bobby's restaurant, which in fact all has to do with Shane and his family that Con and Min are trying to impress still. This is the reason they're going on with this fake relationship. You know, Hank was supposed to keep that secret. Well, he ends up telling Peggy, so the both of them now have to keep up the lie together. Of course, it wouldn't be Min and Con without putting down on the hills, as well as Shane trying to impress his parents. Connie is just fed up with Shane and his genuine fakeness. He's taking all the credit for Bobby. He's pretending to be this great partner, which he really isn't. After Bobby hearing everything that Connie's been through so far tonight, he wants to make a move. So he goes to talk to his parents, which Hank ends up revealing the big news that both Con and Min are divorced. And Bobby makes the right decision. He goes to talk to Connie about her parents and the divorce, and things kind of go 180 mode on them. If you didn't know, the person in charge of videographing is actually Dale. So it comes around to the time to play the slideshow on the big screen that everyone's watching. What actually plays is the conversation that is going on between Bobby and Connie, and they hear about this divorce news, making everyone really shocked. The charade is no longer. Con and Min have to explain themselves on stage. After everything that just happened, Connie's by herself, sitting there, feeling like a dump. Shane comes over, and he's like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna dip." And this is where Connie and him both break up. Afterwards, we get one of those throwback moments. So, Mrs. Hill tells Connie one day she'll be a great wife. And it was just so nostalgic seeing the two talk. Connie says, "It always feels better coming from you, Mrs. Hill." I love it. So Connie's all by herself out on this golf course. Coming out of nowhere is Bobby Hill on a golf cart. And that's where the two share a nice hug, and we find out that she broke up with Shane. So for the episode's true finale, you have Con in the garage, and the guys come to greet him and be like, "Hey, want to come enjoy some beers with us?" Con just ends up shutting down the garage door. Hank ends up tossing in a beer anyway, which perfectly encapsulates the relationship fully. Episode 9. My goodness, we get multiple returning characters all in one little room. First of all, you have Good Hank, you have Dee Dee, as well as Hank's Japanese brother, Junichiro. With Cotton now being dead, they are there to then get their inheritance. With the absence of Cotton, Dee Dee's been having trouble with Good Hank. This is where she gets the idea of maybe letting him spend some time with Hank. On the other hand, Bobby's been quite busy with the restaurant and not really seeing his own mom, during which she was supposed to have a partner for her racket match. This is where she gets terribly hurt, and now she has to go to Dallas to get MRIs took. With no choice and limited time, Bobby has to take Peggy to this hospital. So everyone in the alley thinks Hank Jr. is maybe gooning, and that's where Hank actually reveals that he's fell down this whole scam that's kind of like Andrew Tate. What's funny is that Hank thought these were good values, and this is where Hank Jr. reveals that he needs a sign-off fee in order to join this class, which Hank agrees to. Peggy ended up having a huge panic attack during her MRI. So her appointment gets set back another day, and now she has to stay over with Bobby and Joseph. During that same night, Peggy was able to spend some time with Bobby, doing this pencil fighting game. Hank and Hank Jr. take on Hustler University Jr. Throughout the absurd boot camp, Hank is starting to see through this. When it comes for time for Peggy to make up her MRI appointment, she ends up having another panic attack and getting set back another day, going back to Bobby's house once again. This is what it took for Hank to break. During this Hustler University thing, they had this thing called the Nads of Truth, and everyone would go around the circle and hold these yellow balls. Everyone here had women problems, and this Andrew Tate looking guy, he would disrespect women. And this is when Hank had enough. We find out that Hank Jr. was having problems with this girl who ended up friend zoning him, and this is his way of trying to find justification. Hank Jr. does not like being corrected by his brother. This is where he goes cotton mode so hard that we get thrown back to a memory. Bobby's still busy, and Peggy's still here. This is when he starts to notice something, that maybe his mom isn't hurt. While Bobby is looking on his phone, he looks at his mother's text messages, which she didn't respond to. Really tugs you in the heart in the right place. Hank wants to talk man to man with Mr. Wannabe Andrew Tate, and this guy is still playing on this Andrew Tate act. Hank knows exactly what to do. He calls up Dale to build some dirt on this guy. As Peggy was about to go into another panic attack, this is where Bobby gets on the intercom and he tells his mom about how he's going to be doing this mother and son deal at his restaurant. He essentially invites her from now on to come in and have some food with him. While Bobby's in there with the doctor, we actually get to see Peggy's MRI results, and we get a throwback to, "That's my purse, I don't know you." And apparently, she knows from looking at this that there's some sort of scar where she's been kicked by a 12-year-old. Finally, Hank exposes this dude. The one that is paying for this boot camp is his own mother. Everyone ends up leaving, including Hank Jr. Thanks to Hank, he was able to guide Hank Jr. into a better light. We get to see him hug his own mother and even shake Hank's hand. And to finish this off, they didn't forget to throw in a memory picture. So the big thing is Hank Jr. used all of his inheritance money to buy this used car, which the two brothers can work together on fixing up. We're down to one episode, episode 10. We start this one off with Hank and Peggy having their annual Hills meeting. The guys are all in the alley when John Redcorn pulls up to share them this new product called John Redcorn's Red Corn. That's where John Redcorn reveals that he is having a hog problem, so the guys decide to help him out. Now we go to Bobby, who's having his first date with Connie. This ends up not being a very good date. They both fall asleep since this is like a super long violin performance, and we didn't even know this, but Connie got out of violin in middle school. After the guys get done helping John Redcorn, Boone Howard ends up telling Hank about this pig extermination business that he wants to open, but he needs financial partners. That's where Hank invites him to the next Hills meeting. The thing is, though, Boone Howard goes ahead and pitches the idea to Peggy, and she buys into it before even discussing anything with Hank. That's where Hank goes straight to the bank to discuss if this is a good financial decision, which surprisingly, they buy into it themselves, and Hank kind of just leaves out there. He does not want to put any money into this. Without any business at all, this operation keeps growing. More and more people keep joining. After Bobby's not so hot date, Connie ends up calling him up saying she's got something figured out for next time. And continuing, somehow this company that's done zero business so far has even got gear sponsors. Very unexpectedly, Hank goes to Buck Strickland's house to ask for advice. And of course, as always, whenever there's a scheme, Buck always has his head right there. He plays Hank like an absolute fiddle, like every time. You'll never guess who bought the rest of the shares. After Hank arrives home with a big celebration party going on for this company, he's starting to second guess him not investing. Basically, the final straw was a football player buying into this company, as well as each of the founding members getting a truck. Bobby and Connie finally have their next date, and this one's looking really good. Connie picked this because if you remember that trampoline thing that went a while back, you know, some old guy sold them some alcohol and they may have puked, which is kind of like a funny nostalgia back. Spoke a little too soon, so Connie ends up getting clocked out by this kid and she hurts her shoulder pretty terribly. Bobby actually has to take her to the hospital. Even though Hank believes the slow and steady wins the race, he buys into this hog company's share. Sadly, though, whenever he goes to check out the party, it turns out it crashed, so now his money's gone forever. When Hank and Peggy talk, Hank knew what he did. This is where Peggy reveals that she ended up selling her share and listening to Hank. So, in the end, Slow and Steady did win. It took Bobby being in the cafeteria to understand now we're older, we're not the same as we were kids. With Bobby knowing this, he tries to talk to Connie while she's drugged, and they have this really good conversation together, which does include a kiss. I mean, come on, this has to be one of the greatest fictional couples ever. After the failure of the Hog Company, Hank takes it in his own hands to go out there and go capture some hogs. The thing is all of his buddies come and help him do this. And you can't forget about Peggy too. It's just really great that he has good friends and an amazing wife to help him. As for a grand finale, we get to see John Redcorn trying to sell his John Redcorn to the Hills, which together they team up and agree to buy into this. And there's no other way to end the first of a return. In memory of Jonathan Joss. Starting at 12 Sunday, this is when I started marathon this series. I went episode 1 through 4, went to bed, came back Monday, watched the rest. And that's why this video is a bit longer and some of it doesn't cut up the same as the rest. Explanations may not be the best, but right here, this is what matters. I've seen every episode, and I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. This was an amazing return. Season 14, they knocked it absolutely out of the park. Remembering they had losses, they had to make new castings, that was a setback. So here, they try to scatter characters, and I feel like that's an amazing way to do it. You don't want to put them all in at once because it makes it feel less special whenever they're there from the get go. Each episode, you never know what you're going to see, and that is what should get you excited to return to the series. And that's something that excites me. The other big thing is Bobby being grown, the plot lines being more mature, and he can get into different problems than ever before. He was already a great character, but it should be more exciting now than ever before. Because his plot lines were already awesome, but I feel like having two great main characters that are having these good main plots, which Bobby had these main plots, but these feel better to me. I like these. I can relate to them more, and that's something with time. Not every joke here did I like exactly. I feel like this one kind of fell loose into time around that COVID times, and I'm guessing that's where they were thinking about bringing out this remake. And it kind of got shelved for quite a while. So that does make sense why a lot of it's related around there. You got like Andrew Tate and some COVID s stuff, which, yeah, I get it. And can't forget about like the Bumble stuff and all of that. You get what I'm saying. But overall, I loved it, and I'm glad I picked it up and watched it all on the get go. If I had to rate it, I'm going to say it's a 9.4. Underrated.